Wings of Defiance. The Last Stand of Major James Crawford. Breaking Protocol. The air in the briefing room was thick with the scent of stale coffee and unspoken tension. Major James Crawford, callsign Spectre, sat at the head of the table, his dark eyes scanning the faces of his squadron. He was a man forged in the crucible of countless sorties, his reputation preceding him like a shadow. At 38, Crawford was a legend in the 33rd Fighter Squadron, a pilot whose calm demeanor belied a razor-sharp tactical mind and reflexes that defied human limits. But today, even Spectre felt the weight of the world pressing down. The holographic map projected onto the table shimmered, depicting the besieged city of Al-Nahar. Ground forces, a multinational peacekeeping contingent, were pinned down, their position compromised, their extraction routes cut off. Intelligence indicated a new, heavily fortified enemy position had been established overnight, directly in the path of the planned evacuation corridor. The mission, codenamed Operation Desert Shield, was already teetering on the brink of disaster. General Thorne, a man whose career was built on rigid adherence to protocol, cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, the situation is critical. Our ground assets are in a precarious position. Reconnaissance confirms a significant enemy air defense network has been activated around Al-Nahar. Our primary objective remains to provide air superiority for the extraction of Alpha Company. However, due to the heightened threat, all offensive maneuvers beyond designated air corridors are strictly forbidden. We cannot risk our limited air assets against an unknown number of enemy fighters." Crawford felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. "General, with all due respect, if we stick to those corridors, Alpha Company will be sitting ducks. The enemy knows our playbook. They'll be waiting." Thorne's gaze hardened. "Major, your concerns are noted, but intelligence suggests the enemy's air capabilities are minimal. Our primary threat is ground-to-air. We will neutralize those threats from a safe distance. No unnecessary risks. Is that clear?" "Crystal, sir," Crawford replied, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that Thorne was wrong. The intelligence was outdated, or worse, deliberately misleading. He'd seen the enemy's capabilities evolve firsthand. Minimal air capabilities, that was a lie. Later, alone in his ready room, Crawford stared at the tactical map. The designated air corridors were a death trap. He traced a finger along an alternative route, a narrow, winding path through a series of canyons and valleys, far from the established flight paths. It was risky, uncharted territory, but it offered a chance to flank the enemy, to hit them where they least expected it. It was a direct violation of Thorne's orders. His wingman, Lieutenant Sarah Viper Jenkins, walked in, her face etched with worry. "Spectre, you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse, Viper. I've seen the future if we follow those orders. Alpha Company won't make it." He turned to her, his eyes burning with a fierce resolve. "We have to go off script. We have to hit them hard, and we have to hit them fast, before they can even react." Viper's eyes widened. "Spectre, you're talking about disobeying a direct order from the general. That's a court-martial at best. At worst." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Crawford nodded slowly. "I know the risks, but what's the alternative? Watch our brothers and sisters die because we followed a flawed plan. I can't do it, Viper. My conscience won't allow it." He thought of the faces of the young soldiers he'd met, the families waiting for them back home. He remembered a verse his grandmother used to quote, "A beacon in times of fear. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." It wasn't about divine intervention, not for him, but about finding the strength within to do what was right, even when it was terrifying. He looked at Viper, a silent question in his gaze. "Are you with me?" Viper hesitated, her loyalty to orders warring with her trust in Crawford. She knew his instincts were rarely wrong. She also knew the consequences, but looking into his determined eyes, seeing the conviction there, she made her choice. "Always, Spectre, let's go save some lives." As they walked towards their F-22 Raptors, the roar of jet engines already filling the air, Crawford felt a strange calm settle over him. He was about to gamble everything, his career, his freedom, perhaps even his life, on a hunch, on a gut feeling that screamed defiance in the face of authority, but he knew, deep down, it was the only way. If you're captivated by stories of courage against impossible odds, don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe to follow Major Crawford's incredible journey and never miss an upload. The twin F-22 Raptors, Spectre 1 and Spectre 2, sliced through the pre-dawn sky, their advanced stealth technology rendering them all but invisible to conventional radar. They were flying low, hugging the contours of the jagged desert landscape, a ghost squadron on a rogue mission. The designated air corridors were miles to their east, where the rest of the squadron was preparing for their safe distance engagement. Crawford felt a pang of guilt for leaving his comrades, but the lives of Alpha Company weighed heavier on his soul than any military regulation. Spectre 1 to Spectre 2, check your 6. Crawford's voice crackled over the comms, calm as ever. Clear, Spectre 1. Still nothing on my scope. Are you sure about this, sir? Viper's voice was tight, a thin veil over her apprehension. Positive, Viper. Trust your gut, not the intel. They're out there. Crawford's eyes, trained for years to spot the slightest anomaly, scanned the horizon. The sun was just beginning to paint the eastern sky in hues of orange and purple, casting long, deceptive shadows across the dunes. Suddenly, his radar blipped. Not one, not two, but a swarm of contacts, emerging from the radar clutter like phantoms. Contact, multiple bogies, high altitude, closing fast. Looks like a full squadron, maybe more. They're not just ground-to-air, Viper. They've got air superiority fighters and they're good. Viper's breath hitched. Holy smokes, that's at least 12 contacts, Spectre. MiG-29s, maybe even some Su-35s. They were waiting for us, just not where command expected. Exactly. Looks like our minimal air capabilities just turned into a full-blown ambush. Alpha Company would have been annihilated. Crawford's voice was grim, but his hands moved with practiced precision over the controls. All right, Viper. Time to earn our pay. Brake left, hard. Let's see what these ghosts are made of. The two Raptors peeled off, their afterburners kicking in, leaving streaks of fire against the pale sky. The enemy fighters, a mix of advanced Russian-made jets, were already closing the distance, their radar locking onto the American stealth plane. Despite their stealth, the sheer number of enemy aircraft and their advanced sensors meant they wouldn't remain hidden for long. Missile launch. Spectre 1 evasive. Viper screamed, her RWR radar warning receiver blaring. Crawford pulled back on the stick, his F-22 climbing sharply, then rolling into a high G turn. A streak of smoke flashed past his canopy, a heat-seeking missile missing by mere feet. Too close. They're using IRST, Viper. They're not relying on radar alone. Stay sharp. IRST infrared search and track systems were passive, making them incredibly difficult to detect and counter. The sky erupted into a chaotic ballet of speed and steel. Crawford, despite being outnumbered, moved with a predatory grip. He weaved through the incoming missiles, his countermeasures flaring like desperate stars. He locked onto a lead MiG-29, launching an AIM-120 AMRF. The missile streaked across the sky, finding its target with a fiery explosion. Splash 1, Spectre 1, I've got 2 on my tail. Viper cried, her voice strained. I see him. Break right, I'm coming around. Crawford executed a daring emulment turn, gaining altitude before diving back down, positioning himself behind Viper's pursuers. He fired 2 quick bursts from his 20mm cannon, stitching a line of destruction across the fuselage of one MiG. It spiraled out of control, a plume of black smoke marking its demise. Splash 2, but the enemy was relentless. More fighters swarmed in, their pilots aggressive and skilled. Crawford realized they weren't just trying to shoot them down, they were trying to overwhelm them, to pin them down until the ground-to-air defenses could finish the job. He could hear the distant thud of anti-aircraft fire, a grim reminder of the trap Alpha Company was walking into. Spectre 1, we're getting hammered, my fuel is dropping fast, and I'm almost out of flares. Viper's voice was laced with desperation. Hold on, Viper. We just need to clear a path. I'm going to draw them off. Get ready to punch through. Crawford knew this was the riskiest part. He was going to become bait, drawing the bulk of the enemy fighters onto himself, giving Viper a slim window to break through and provide cover for the ground forces. It was a gamble, but it was their only shot. The tension is building and the stakes have never been higher. Did you enjoy this intense sequence? Like this story to show your support and help others discover these incredible tales. Spectre 2, disengage and head for the extraction point. Provide cover for Alpha Company. I'll handle these guys. Crawford's command was sharp, leaving no room for argument. But Spectre, you'll be alone against a dozen of them. Viper protested, her voice cracking with fear for her mentor. That's the plan, now go. Those soldiers need you more than I do. Crawford didn't wait for a reply. He pushed his F-22 into a screaming dive, directly into the heart of the enemy formation. His RWR shrieked, a cacophony of incoming missile locks. He was a lone wolf, surrounded by a pack of hungry predators. The next 8 minutes were a blur of G-forces, adrenaline and pure unadulterated fury. Crawford became one with his machine, his movements fluid, instinctive. He twisted, turned, climbed and dove, his F-22 dancing on the edge of its performance envelope. He was a master of aerial combat, and this was his masterpiece. A pair of Su-35s, their thrust-vectoring nozzles, allowing for impossible maneuvers, tried to sandwich him. Crawford anticipated their move, pulling a high-alpha Pugachev's Cobra, momentarily stalling his jet in mid-air, forcing the Su-35s to overshoot. As they passed, he slammed the throttle forward, kicking in his afterburners, and locked onto the lead Su-35. A quick burst from his cannon tore through its wing, sending it spiraling down in a fiery cartwheel. Splash 3, another MiG-29, emboldened by the numbers, came at him head-on. Crawford didn't flinch. He held his line, waiting until the last possible second, then executed a lightning-fast split S, dropping below the MiG, then pulling up sharply behind it. Before the enemy pilot could react, Crawford unleashed a volley of cannon fire, shredding the MiG's tail. Splash 4, his radar screen was a chaotic mess of friendly and enemy contacts, but Crawford's mind was a calm, calculating machine. He was counting, tracking, anticipating. He knew every angle, every vector. He was fighting not just with his hands and feet, but with his mind, his experience, his very soul. Spectre 1, this is Viper. I'm at the extraction point. Alpha Company is under heavy fire from ground units. I need you to clear the sky. Viper's voice was urgent, the sound of distant explosions audible in the background. Working on it, Viper, just a few more to go. Crawford gritted his teeth. He was down to his last few missiles, his cannon ammo dwindling. He had to make every shot count. He saw a cluster of 3 enemy fighters attempting to flank him. Instead of engaging them directly, he used his superior speed and stealth to bait them into a chase. He led them low, skimming the desert floor, then pulled up sharply into a narrow canyon. The enemy pilots, eager for the kill, followed. It was a deadly game of chicken. As they entered the canyon, Crawford suddenly slammed on his brakes, deploying his speed brakes and cutting his throttle. The lead enemy jet, unable to react in time, overshot. Crawford immediately reversed, firing an AIM-9 Sidewinder heatseeker. The missile found its mark, detonating the MiG in a spectacular fireball against the canyon wall. The explosion sent debris raining down, disorienting the other 2. Splash 5. He then used the confusion to his advantage, weaving through the smoke and debris, locking onto the second fighter. Another Sidewinder, another explosion. Splash 6. The third fighter, its pilot clearly rattled, tried to disengage, but Crawford was relentless. He closed the distance, his cannon spitting fire, until the last enemy jet disintegrated in a shower of sparks. Splash 7. He checked his fuel, critically low, his ammo, almost dry. His RWR was still screaming, but the number of contacts had drastically reduced. He had decimated their air superiority. He had bought Alpha Company precious time. Spectre 1, to Viper, skies are clear, get those ground troops out of there. Crawford's voice was hoarse, but triumphant. He had done it. He had defied orders, faced impossible odds, and emerged victorious. Witness the most explosive 8 minutes in aerial combat history. If you're on the edge of your seat, comment below. What would you have done in Crawford's position? Share your thoughts with our community. The flight back to base was a silent, tense affair. Crawford's F-22, riddled with bullet holes and low on fuel, limped through the sky, a testament to the brutal engagement it had just survived. Viper flew close, her own jet showing signs of battle, but intact. The The silence on the comms was heavy, filled with the unspoken weight of their action. They had saved Alpha Company, but at what cost to themselves? As they touched down, the ground crew rushed to their jets, their faces a mixture of awe and concern. The damage to Crawford's Raptor was extensive, a miracle it had held together. He climbed out of the cockpit, his body aching, his ears ringing, but his spirit unbowed. General Thorne was waiting on the tarmac, his face a thunder cloud. Major Crawford, Lieutenant Jenkins, my office now. Thorne's voice was cold, devoid of any hint of relief or gratitude. In Thorne's office, the air was thick with accusation. Major, you deliberately disobeyed a direct order, you jeopardized 2 of our most advanced aircraft, and risked a diplomatic incident by engaging enemy forces outside of designated parameters. Do you have any idea the gravity of your action? Crawford stood at attention, his gaze steady. Sir, with all due respect, your intelligence was flawed. There were at least a dozen advanced enemy fighters waiting in ambush. If we had followed your orders, Alpha Company would have been wiped out. I made a tactical decision to save lives. A tactical decision that was not yours to make, Thorne roared, slamming his fist on the desk. You are a pilot, Major, not a strategist. You follow orders, not rewrite them in the heat of battle. And if following orders means sacrificing my people, then I will break every single one of them, Crawford retorted, his voice unwavering. I saw what was happening, sir. I had to act. Viper stepped forward. General, Major Crawford saved my life, and he saved Alpha Company. He took on an entire squadron by himself to give us a chance. He's a hero, sir. Thorne scoffed. A hero, or a rogue who thinks he's above the chain of command? There will be a full inquiry, Major. A court-martial is inevitable. You understand that, don't you? Crawford nodded. Yes, I understand, and I stand by my decision. The news of Major Crawford's defiance and his impossible victory spread like wildfire. The media hailed him as a hero, the specter of Al-Nahar, a pilot who single-handedly turned the tide against overwhelming odds. The rescued soldiers of Alpha Company, their lives spared, spoke out passionately in his defense. Petitions circulated, demanding his exoneration, but within the military, the debate raged. Some saw him as a maverick, a dangerous precedent. Others, particularly those on the front lines, saw him as a true leader, a man who put lives above regulations. General Thorne, under immense pressure, was forced to navigate a political minefield. The court-martial was a spectacle. Crawford, stoic and resolute, presented his case with quiet dignity. He didn't deny disobeying orders, he simply explained why. He spoke of the faces of the soldiers, the flawed intelligence, the moral imperative that drove him. In the end, the verdict was a compromise. Major James Crawford was found guilty of insubordination and relieved of his command. He was honorably discharged from the Air Force, his illustrious career brought to an abrupt end. But the court also acknowledged his extraordinary bravery and the undeniable fact that his actions had saved countless lives. He received no medals, no commendations, only a quiet acknowledgement of his service. As Crawford walked out of the courthouse, a free man but no longer a pilot, he was met by a throng of supporters. Alpha Company was there, saluting him, their eyes filled with gratitude. Viper stood beside him, a silent promise of loyalty in her gaze. He had lost his wings, but he had gained something far more valuable, the respect of those he had fought for, and the unwavering conviction that he had done the right thing. His legacy became a complex tapestry, a cautionary tale for those who would defy authority, and an inspiring legend for those who believed that true courage sometimes meant breaking the rules to uphold a higher moral code. Major James Crawford, the specter of Al-Nahar, had flown his last mission, but his defiance had etched his name into the annals of military history, a testament to the power of one man's will against impossible odds. What did you think of Major Crawford's choice? His defiance changed everything. Subscribe and share this remarkable story with friends who love tales of extraordinary courage and impossible victories. Your support means everything.